Hello and welcome to the second poster session of our conference. We'll have 14 posters today presented over the next 20 minutes, each for 1 minute, followed by the bell, and then the next poster, just as we did yesterday. At the end of the presentations, you can go to the breakout room to visit the presenters and discuss their posters with them. So without further ado, let's start with our first poster presenter today. And may I invite Farzaneh Barak from McGill University in Canada to speak on intra-household empowerment patterns in relation to food security. Farzaneh.
Thank you. Putting together the high rates of food insecurity and the two main patterns of intra-household empowerment, we assessed how empowering women affects the food security status of men and women in either condition and tested their differences. In condition 1, when only man is empowered, empowering women results in the status of both empowered. And in condition 2, when none of them is empowered, empowering women results in the status of only woman is empowered. We found that women's food security improves in both conditions, but men's food security improves only in the second condition. This shows the importance of gender-sensitive analysis in food security studies for closing gender gaps. I'll see you in the breakout rooms. Thank you.
Thank you, Farzaneh. Our next speaker today is Jeffrey Asalu from the University of Ghana's Health and Allied Sciences on nutrition, knowledge, perception, and use of health-related labels in households. Over to you, Jeffrey.
Thank you. Health-related aspects of food labels include the nutrition fact panel, the serving size, the ingredient list, and front-of-pack nutrition labels. This study investigated the nutrition knowledge and perception and use of health-related label information among households in Accra. For this cross-sectional study, the main findings indicated that nutrition knowledge was low, perception was high, and usage was also low. And it's the main takeaway is the fact that effort should be geared towards promoting health-related knowledge of nutrition information on labels. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Our next speaker is Hetal Haria from the Ashoka Trust in India on trends in consumption of milk and milk products amongst pastoralists. Hetal, over to you.
We set out to look at the changes in the consumption of milk and milk products among milk producer communities. Initially, when they were pastoralists and had a lot more movement, most of their income was from sale of animals, but which has shifted to selling of milk because of coming in of various dairy processes and a cold storage and a supply chain. So the parameters that we looked at were whether an increase in milk production is resulting in an increase in their consumption of milk, but we found that that is not the case. In fact, it has reduced by more than half in terms of how much milk is kept. Also, a very important and interesting change has been the allocation for buttermilk from the amount of milk kept for the household, which is linked to cultural practices.
Thank you. We'll now move on to Ridhima Kapoor, who's going to talk about indigenous foods of the whole community of Jharkhand. Ridhima is from the University of Delhi in India. Ridhima, over to you.
Hello, everyone. We conducted a mixed method study to explore the traditional foods of Ho indigenous community in Jharkhand, India. Our qualitative inquiries revealed a diverse list of 242 indigenous foods. Upon secondary review and nutrient analysis of specific foods, a majority of these were found to be micronutrient rich. However, focus group discussions with the community revealed that only 55% of these foods are commonly consumed, while the rest are underutilized. Based on our discussions with the community, we found some factors that promote the indigenous food consumption, such as their organoleptic properties, their perceived nutritional benefits, and their socio-cultural importance in the community. We also identified some barriers towards the indigenous foods, such as the high opportunity cost of accessing indigenous foods, the reduced availability in wide habitats and the lack of awareness on indigenous foods among the younger generation. Therefore, these findings could potentially be used for promoting nutritious and diverse traditional foods in Ho community. Thank you.
Thank you, Redeema. Our next presentation is from Olutayo Toramade from the University of Ibadan in Nigeria on nutrition-sensitive programming on non-humanitarian food assistance. Olutayo, over to you.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Food assistance programs are important food systems element for vulnerable households. These programs must be deliberately harnessed to improve nutrition outcomes. This study was conducted among program implementers and their beneficiaries at 8 organizations implementing food assistance programs. The major findings were that readiness for nutrition-sensitive programming was generally low across organizations. Just 3 of the organizations incorporated nutrition objectives. Moreover, these organizations had limited guidance on how to improve the nutrition sensitivity of their programs. This study implies that FOPs in Lagos are inadequately designed to improve the nutrition of their beneficiaries. In conclusion, there is need for guidelines and greater nutrition accountability of organizations delivering non-humanitarian food assistance programs. I welcome you to discuss my research in details. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Our next presentation is from Pamela Madadudu from the Faculty of Agriculture at the University of Zimbabwe on agricultural commercialization impacts on household food security. Pamela.
Good day, everyone. My name is Pamela Madadudu, a PhD student of agricultural economics at the University of Pretoria. I was motivated to do my study because in Zimbabwe, we have a serious challenge of food insecurity, with 70% of the people depending on smallholder farming, and these people face a challenge of food insecurity and they cannot afford nutritious food. So therefore, I was motivated to do this study because agricultural commercialization is one of the proposed ways to improve and enhance nutrition due to higher output and higher income. So I used propensity score matching method, whereby I compared the commercialized versus non-commercialized households.
Thank you, Pamela. Our next speaker today is Chuma Chinzila from the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa on understanding consumer behavior through the live experience of food in urban contexts. Over to you, Chuma.
Thank you. We conducted a study to understand consumer behavior through lived experiences of food. And we used the photo voice method where participants took photos of the meals on their plates every day, the healthy food and sources of food. So we used the study context within Durban or rural or peri-urban areas. We used the informal settlements as well as low-cost housing, which is called the RDP housing. Okay, so the study highlights include participants consuming a variety of food. They also consume unhealthy food, which they did identify as unhealthy, as well as healthy food. And overall, the study highlights the need for urban policy and planning to recognize the value of food in creating sustainable cities and elevate the position of food in the urban agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuma. Our next presentation is from Kelda Jung from the London School of Hygiene Tropical Medicine in the UK on the effective healthcare of agricultural exposure for healthcare professionals. Kelda.
Thank you. With increasing global burdens, healthcare systems need urgent reform in order to cope and deliver effective care sustainably. We identify that healthcare professionals are an effective platform to instill lifestyle improvements among individuals, with the aim of improving holistic health and alleviating healthcare burdens. However, most healthcare professionals are not trained to provide advice on diet and lifestyle. When developing a training program, we discovered that the different aspects of sustainable diet and lifestyle are best encapsulated by agriculture-oriented initiatives. We ran a 2-day interactive pilot workshop for healthcare professionals. This was made virtual due to COVID, but based on surveys conducted before and after the workshop, we still received positive results. The workshop successfully increased participants' confidence and knowledge where lacking, whilst maintaining pre-existing positive attitudes and perceptions. Such positive results, despite the virtual delivery, support the continued refinement and development of this program. Integrating sustainable lifestyle changes into routine practice would bring holistic benefits for patients, practitioners, and the wider population. I hope to see you later in the breakout room. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelda. Our next presentation today is on how policies can reduce obesity to be more effective following the COVID-19 pandemic. It's given by Charlotte Gallagher Squires from the Center for Food Policy at City University in UK.
Hi, so thanks, Jeff. So over the pandemic, we interviewed 62 parents over the phone and asked about their experiences of feeding their families. And the findings point to 3 areas for more equitable and effective food policy. So firstly, as feeding children moved into the home, this work was largely taken on by women. So balancing this alongside paid work, mothers often lacked the bandwidth and capacity to prioritize nutrition. This points to the importance of strengthening our systems which help share child food work across society, such as equitable parental leave or good quality school food. Secondly, we need policy proposals which consider what food means in people's day-to-day life. We saw in lockdowns how food is used to fill social and emotional needs and boost well-being when other opportunities for leisure are limited. And finally, policy should ensure that people have the financial means to prioritize healthy food while also restricting promotions on unhealthy food.
Thank you, Charlotte. Our next presentation is from Claudia Offner from the London School of Hygiene Tropical Medicine in the UK on measuring cumulative exposure to flooding over time. Claudia.
Climate change is expected to increase the frequency and severity of global flooding events, and this has severe implications for countries like Bangladesh, where flooding is necessary for agriculture production, but can have adverse health outcomes if it falls outside the anticipated pattern. Little is known about the cumulative effects of flooding on health, and this is largely due to a lack of longitudinal flood metrics. Our solution? Well, typically flooding can be identified by differencing satellite images taken before and after a known flooding event. The UN spider method is one example of this approach, but we adapted it to extract flooding as a time series for the Sylhet division of Bangladesh. This new approach can be summarized in 3 steps. First, we created a composite dry image to use as our series reference. Second, we difference this reference with every subsequent satellite image for our time period. Finally, we extracted flooding as a time series to combine with appropriate health data sets. And in doing this, we found that we were able to identify periods of abnormal flooding over time, but it's complicated.
Thank you, Claudia. Our next speaker is Dustin Aitken from the Bloomberg School of Public Health at St. Johns Hopkins University in the USA on policy coherence for food system transformation. Dustin.
Hello, everyone. Our scoping review aims to understand how policy coherence has been defined and measured for food systems transformation. Our study protocol was informed by a high-level definition of policy coherence as the system's integration of policies across different areas and institutes with an emphasis on synergies and trade-offs to accomplish mutual goals. Following standard scoping review methodology, we ultimately analyzed 36 out of 4,281 potential studies. We found qualitative content analysis, key stakeholder interviews, and frameworks to assess policy coherence as the most common measurement approaches. This study hasn't uncovered an existing clear food definition, food systems-oriented definition for policy coherence. Current definitions and methods, however, offer a path forward to integrate approaches to guide and track progress towards achieving the SDGs and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dastan. Our next presentation is from Crystal Rampali from the University of South Carolina in the USA on food choice decision-making in the context of changing livelihoods. Crystal.
Thank you. People in low and middle income countries are experiencing livelihood changes in response to environmental, geopolitical, and sociocultural pressures, altering how and where people work. In tandem with livelihood change, food choice behaviors such as food production, acquisition, preparation, distribution, and consumption are also changing. We conducted a narrative review to better understand relationships between livelihood change and food choice. We found that there were changes in the nature and environment of workplaces, income, time use, and social interactions, all of which affected food choice behaviors. For example, shifting from agriculture to wage work led to a reduction in household food production. When people migrated from rural to urban areas, they were exposed to different foods that led to an increased demand for less traditional, more processed foods. Household food distribution was affected as individuals lost autonomy over their time when shifting to livelihoods that required longer hours at more controlled workplaces, leading to irregular meal patterns. Understanding these relationships between livelihood change in low and middle income countries is important for developing programs and policies to improve health. Thanks.
Thank you, Crystal. Our next presentation is from Hoang Trinh from Phong Mai University in Vietnam on Diet Quality Index and Food Choice Motives in Vietnam. Over to you, Hoang Trinh.
Thank you. So in this work, we first use the explanatory factor analysis to find out 5 latent factors which explain the choices in Vietnam. They are health focused, sensory appear, most ethical, convenience, and familiarity. And then you're using the 5 latent factors and including social, demographic, and nutritional needs through CFA and SHAM model to explain the determinant of diet quality in Vietnam, which includes the 4 components for diet quality index in Vietnam and macronutrient and per capita calorie intake. The result shows that latent variable of food choice motive linked to different aspects of diet quality, and then we give some policy recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Hoang Trinh. Our final presentation is from Jessica Brock from the Center for Food Policy at City University in the UK on children and young people's participation in co-designing solutions for healthier food environments. Over to you, Jessica.
At the Center for Food Policy, we believe that people most affected by our food system should be involved in co-designing more equitable solutions. This includes young people who are pervasively affected by our unhealthy food and physical activity environments. To make our environments healthier, we believe young people should be part of the solution. So we did a scoping review to find out how have children and young people participated in co-designing healthier food and physical activity environments globally. And we found that in 91% of studies, a key step of co-designing healthier solutions was to get young people to conduct their own research on their food and physical activity environment first. And for our international audience here today, only 13% of studies have been conducted in the Global South. So given that at least one solution was implemented in the majority of studies, we found this meant that young people's solutions were feasible, but more research is needed.
Thank you, speakers. It takes a tremendous amount of organization to present a series of concise and timely presentations like that. I think we're all extremely impressed. What a great range of posters. See you at the next session.